Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on a Daiwa reel. It's the Daiwa Saltist, and just barely visible is the 40. I believe it says HA. Could be wrong, but it's just a very faded remnant of itself. Reel overall turns okay. I'm hearing a lot of burring noise in there, and we may want to go address that as part of the service. We'll have to see once we take it apart. Show you how the reel is made, do a little bit of an understanding of the pieces and parts and how to service the reel. And again, if those bearings are an industry standard, I'll see if I can get to swapping them out to see if it makes a difference. We start by removing the set screw for the handle cap, then the handle cap, and we'll continue on taking the exterior pieces and parts off of this reel. And as I do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like to learn about fishing reel service and repair, if you'd like to understand more about the fishing industry and how the equipment is used, who makes the equipment, and well, a little bit about the histories of the companies, etc., then I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Okay, we've taken the handle off, the little shim washer underneath the handle. Now we're going to back off the star adjuster. There's a spacer here, but that usually will move up. You saw me struggling a little bit with it, but when you move it up, it'll be here. And as it falls out, or if it falls out, you know where to put it. When I take my pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray so I know where those pieces and parts belong. I know easy access for the time when it's time to reinstall. I also know if I've left anything behind, if I'm sewing up the reel, putting it all back together again, and look over there and see a part that, well, should have been installed on the reel. I encourage you to have a parts management strategy in place before you start taking the pieces and the parts off. It always helps to know what you're going to do with them before you start piling them on your desk and, well, just struggling with them afterwards. All right. There are 5 screws here. When I take the screws out, I put them onto my bench. I make sure once I remove them to make certain that they're all the same size and length and thread patterns. If one or the other is different, I like to note where that location is. I just worked on a Shimano reel, twin power spinning reel, and it had different size case screws, and it was important to note which one went where, because if you tried to put a long one into one hole, you probably would damage the case, and at worst you would have a tag end hanging out of where that screw gets seated. Okay, there's 2 more, one on each side. So far they're all the same size screw, but as I mentioned, it's not unusual for that to be different. Okay, let's take the last one out. We'll get a look inside the reel. This is a relatively high-speed reel. It's a 40 size. That makes it have a lot of good capacity on it. And this one is old school in that it's spooled with monofilament and not braid. Looks to be about 20-pound monofilament line. That's all good. We have a line guide here that I like because it has a through bar on it. What I don't like about the line guide is it's plastic. I've had one of these reels where it's cracked on the top here and the line guide was not available. That's a shame. All right, we're going to take the side plate off now. We have the 5 screws removed. There are no screws from behind. So we should simply be able to pull up and out on this reel. And it's been a while since this one's serviced because I can feel how tight the plate is lodged against the frame. Well, we'll get it out. There we go. This is a good place to tell you that, well, when you're working on this reel, take some pictures. It's a relatively simple reel. You can see it's got a massive main gear. That's why it's going to be high speed. You have 2 springs, a pinion gear, and a jack. And before I do much more, I always take those yoke springs off. With the yoke springs off, we can pull off the main gear now. This main gear has a old school backup anti-reverse dog. Looks like it has some carbon tex washers inside. And you want to remove that. Remove your pinion gear, your yoke, and your jack. And we could do a little bit of cleanup on this wheel. Before I do that, I need to retrieve that anti-reverse dog, which kind of bounced off my chest as I was taking this apart. So always a good word of caution. Be careful with the way that you're working on the reel. And well, you can do a cleanup here. I failed to mention, under those springs, there are two small stainless steel washers that go on the yoke and prevent those springs from trapping in the holes of the yoke. We're going to service the drags first, since they are conveniently out of play. We're going to move the rest of the stuff off to the side. When you're servicing your main gear, you do want to check for worn drags. You want to check on the main gear. That doesn't belong there. You want to check on the main gear for any wear. You want to make sure that all of the paths, the valleys of the gear teeth, are all clean. Now when I did a test on this one, I didn't notice any gear noise, but I did notice bearing noise. And that's probably typical. This is not a new reel. This is an earlier version of the Saltist. And over time, those steel bearings do rust, corrode, pick up dirt and debris, and everything else that's not real good about salt water, or water in particular, and steel gears. All right, we're just going to clean that up. This is all good, clean on the inside. We've cleaned the tracks. And we can take some of this and just go reinstall again. It's a relatively simple reel to service. That back plate is clean. You really don't need to do too much here. But I will use a little bit of penetrating oil just to mop it up. Again, it's usually you would see some kind of old greases and dirt and the like in here. I'm just not seeing that. So we can just keep moving along here. That's where of the finish that's not grease there. All right. So on our ratchet, we have a ratchet, and we have a typical old school finger dog. And it's going to seat like this on the ratchet. And then this is the post where it comes off of. So that's the first piece on the reinstall. Once you've cleaned it up, seat it so that it looks like this. Now there is a square inset on the bottom of that post. Make sure you're on the square. Now I can put the washer that separates the main gear from that click ratchet. And one of the things to note is that washer is lesser of a diameter than this, and more of a diameter, or width, height, than this finger joint. If you didn't put that in here, this would jam up on the back of the main gear. You can also see that there's an offset on the main gear here. This part is raised to allow for that piece to travel freely as an anti-reverse dog. When you've cleaned that up, you've done your inspection, made sure all of the teeth are in good condition, you can re-grease the main gear. And once that main gear is re-greased, you can set that on. I think what we want to do is we want to put that yoke in first. I'm going to take the jack. The jack runs on the post like that. Next up then is the yoke. And the pinion gear. We want to clean up the pinion gear. We're doing the same thing here that we did with the main gear. And sometimes it's easier just to put this in first. Sometimes it's the only way to get it done is to put it in first. So let's do that. Bring that up and over. Seat that on the two poles. And then set that in for the mesh with the spool shaft. As I mentioned, we have those two little stainless steel washers. They go on next. One on each post. Now we can put our main gear on. And these are carbon techs. They are optional to grease or oil. I like to leave them dry. That's the way most of the time they run. You're going to notice we have two washers that have rectangular centers. Those are called keyed washers. One will have a round center and two studs coming out of the side. That's called an eared washer. And one of those rectangular washers actually has a raised top to it. So the raised top, or the indented top, is going to face up. All right, first one goes in, followed by the metal. Second drag washer, followed by the eared washer. That one's going to fit in the slots of the main gear. Third washer, top washer. We're all set there. We can take the springs, put those back on. We can take our spacer for the star adjuster, as well as it becomes the inside race to the anti-reverse clutch. And then we can do a little bit of cleanup on the side plate here. There's not much. As I mentioned, there's no dirt inside here. I think some of the noise we were hearing just may simply be that it was out of greases and oils. We do want to oil that switch. It's your free spool switch. There's a little bit of dirt behind that spring, so we can use a cotton swab to get in there and clean that up as well. Dirt is the enemy of fishing reels. It will clog gears. It will kind of create a nuisance or a jam. And when you're kind of stuck, if you don't clean it up, you've lost an opportunity there. This stud matches with the hole in the jack. Sometimes it'll just go right over. I prefer to start this in the up position because that's where this is, pretty much in the up position. And we're just going to set that in. I'm checking the anti-reverse clutch. It's clean inside there. If you saw dirt, use that cotton swab in there. The clutches do not get oiled or greased. And when you come over here, most of the time you're not going to be meshed in with that piece. So line it up, put pressure on it, and you'll feel it pull in. I just felt it pull in there. That's the bearing from the outside of the case. We can take our 5 screws and put them back in here then. And while I'm doing that, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, maybe you have more questions about this reel in terms of where you use it or what types of fish you use it for, or things like, can it cast well? It can. Is it a preferred casting one? Anything with a level line is really not a preferred casting reel, but it can be used in a casting situation. And if you want another comparable reel by today's standards, because this one is a little bit older, or if you want to know how this sizes up against a pen reel, for example, a pen fathom, just leave those questions in the comment section, and we'll try to answer those for you to the best of my knowledge. I don't know the answers to all the questions, But if I do know, I'll let you know. And if I don't know, I'll try and point you to a resource that you can use to help you get that answer. There's so many makes and models on the marketplace, you just can't stay current or even aware of them. I think a lot of people are realizing that with my fishing reel of the day short videos. Those, well, they highlight a different reel every day. And between the model names, the sizes, the manufacturers, the changes in historical content, well, they just have a lot of reels there. Okay, this is the fifth one. Everything seems to have merged in nicely. Next up then, we can oil this bearing. That goes onto your core shaft. And we had a series of shim washers here. These bowed washers are washers that help to determine the sensitivity of the star adjuster. We have two of them. I put the belly up on the first and I put it down on the second one. That'll give you max adjustability. And we have that noisemaker. And when we go to put that star adjuster on, we want to make sure that this seats nicely. Sometimes when you get down, I mentioned that would probably fall out. Sometimes when you get here, you're going to notice that that little end of the click there is stuck. Just walk it in like this, get it under the lip, and then it should seat properly. If you just kind of get stuck and you just try to overwind it, you're going to bend it, then you won't have a noisemaker. Okay, that's in. Shim is in for the handle. The handle can go on next. The handle cap. And we're done with the gear side. So we'll go over and manage the spool. And we'll go over and take care of that line guide. If you're wondering, the Penn fishing reel wrench does work on this cap. This is a Penn wrench. This is a Daiwa reel, but the scallops are the same. And thank goodness, that just helps to avoid an additional tool on the bench. Okay, that side's done. And just give it a quick test if you like. Bring it into free spool, make sure that it's spinning well. Put it in the gear. Make sure your drags are holding, and once they're holding, back those drags off so that you don't work on compression. Next up then, we're going to work over to the spool side. There's 3 screws holding it on here, so we'll take those off next. So some folks say, why don't you edit this stuff out? You're only taking screws out. Well, every now and then I get an idea about something while I'm doing this, and well, I just let you know, kind of talk through that. The other thing is to give you a realistic look at what it takes to service the reel. I don't want to create a video that shortcuts everything and says that in your mind that it's only going to take 15 minutes to service, because I cut out the mundane stuff that also takes another 15 minutes and results in it being a half-hour total. I try to give you a realistic approach. And like I said, if I find something during that period that sparks some interest, I try to do that as well. 3 screws are out. We should be able to remove the side plate and the spool. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this screw out so that I can remove the bar and service the line guide. I am going to move the line guide over to a side. There is a screw that acts as a tie-down cap for this bar. We'll do that next. I remember doing one of these reels a while ago. Forgot to do the line guide, and of course that means you got to go take everything back off, right? All right, that's out. You can simply pull this bar out once that happens. Well, sometimes it's simply Sometimes it's a little stuck where you don't have the hand strength to do it. There we go. Remove the bar. Notice that the bar can probably go in from either side. There's not one side that's tapered or the other side it's not. Now we're going to remove the cap. The cap contains the pawl inside the 9-guide assembly. And generally, if you just kind of tap gently, you're going to see that the pawl starts to come out. And at some point, you can grab that pawl. When you do, you want to make sure that you clean the shoulders of the pawl. You can see here, there's a lot of dirt on that. So that might be contributing to the whininess of this reel as well. After you clean the shoulders, check the points. Make sure that the points are crisp. They're not bent or worn where one side is higher than the other. If one side is higher than the other, it won't track properly. We can reinstall. I like to put a drop of oil onto that now. Hold down on the pawl. It's on spool-driven side, so make sure that you pull it in. If you hold down and turn, it will move it so that you can lock it in place. If you leave it high and try to tighten the cap, it's going to jam it, your reel won't turn, and then you'll wonder what you did wrong. In this case, we're in good condition. Bring that back. Now we have our bar that goes back in. Make sure you seat it into the hole in the case. Push it all the way down. Get the screw that you just removed. We have a runaway. Try that again. So one of the reasons I say take pictures along the way, I do videos and sometimes that screw will bounce and I really don't have an idea where that screw went. When you don't have an idea where the screw went, it's always fun to take a look at the video. Or as Warner Wolf used to say, let's go to the video. All right, this all looks in good condition. We're going to oil the bearing in the back. You don't need to oil this. This is this is a Teflon gear, which is an oil product. Clean up the bearing on this side. Oil that bearing. Reseat your spool. You can put a little bit of grease onto the spool shaft. That will help with the free spool. Bring that back in and merge that. Take your side plate, make sure that you're in on that. We can put these 3 side plate screws in, give it a final test. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. While I'm doing this, I want to thank our first responders, our police, our fire, our safety, our rescue, EMTs, everybody that has a career in public service, serving the people every day, keeping us out of harm's way. I do appreciate what you do, and I never tire of saying thank you on these videos. I have one more here. The only thing left that we can possibly lubricate on this reel is the worm gear itself. We did put a drop of oil onto the pawl. Let's put a little bit onto the worm gear. Don't use grease in there. If you use grease in there, what's going to happen is it will attract dirt and debris, and well, the next thing you know, you could have a problem with that pawl. We saw dirt on the shoulders of that already. Let's review. We took off the side plate. I showed you the interior workings. We saw how big that gear is. That's why you get a high-speed reel. We showed you how to take it apart, how to clean it, how to service it, inspect the drag washers. They were carbon fiber drag washers. They don't need grease. If you want, you can put a little bit of grease on, but wipe it off. how to reassemble the gear side. We walked over to the other side because the spool had not been serviced, nor had the bearing in the case. Showed you how to do that while we had the side plate off. We also showed you how to remove the underlying bar, the pawl cap and cover, the pawl itself, cleaned the shoulders on the pawl, re-oiled everything, put it back together again. Now it's time to take a look. Well, this one's running a lot more quiet than it was. So it wasn't the bearings, it was the bearings crying out for oil. There you go, it's nice and free and easy. We have a spool adjuster on this one, so if you want to run it a little bit faster, back it off. It will spin quicker. If you want to run it a little bit tighter, make sure you do that. And remember, when you're not using your reel, back that star adjuster off. Don't leave it compressed. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. I want to thank you for watching. I want to wish everybody a great day. Fast friends, fun on the water. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.